On today's show, it's a matchup between the two hottest teams in the Eastern Conference. We'll preview tonight's matchup between the Ottawa Senators and Montreal Canadiens.
We'll take a look at both teams' lines and some key players to watch for this huge game.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. And down in the desert, I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Why not drive to Montreal tonight? Support the Ottawa Senators. Use Game Time to get your tickets. Locked On NHL gets you $20 off your first purchase. Today is Tuesday, March 18th. And Pilsy, we've been hyping up Sens-Habs games since we started the podcast in 2019. But dare I say it's never been more important than tonight.
No, I think that's fair, Ross, because all the other games between these two, none of them had playoff implications on either side. Now, one team, the Ottawa Senators, are in a playoff spot, and another team, the Montreal Canadiens, are trying to get into a playoff spot. So these are two big points on the line. And the good thing is, Ross, this isn't the season finale. They play in Montreal tonight, and then later on in April, they're back at the CTC. So both these games are going to have massive implications. But for me, Ross, this is a big one because this game will decide who gets to keep momentum on their side and who gets to burst the bubble of their rivals' momentum, because the Sens are on a 6-game winning streak and the Habs are one of the hottest teams in March.
Habs are the hottest team since the Four Nations break. They're 7-1-2 in their games since coming back from the break. And for Ottawa, they're 7-0-1 in their last 8, but they did come back from the break with 2 losses, one of those to Montreal, the other to the Winnipeg Jets. So they are 7-2-1. So it's 7-1-2 against 7-2-1 tonight. But the Ottawa Senators, again, in a really good spot, especially after the Columbus Blue Jackets lost yesterday. So Montreal's at 71 points, Detroit and Columbus at 70, and the Bruins got 1 point in an overtime loss to the Buffalo Sabres. So Ottawa right now is 6 points clear of Montreal. So we're not putting the must win on it like maybe we did against Detroit, maybe like we did earlier on in the season in these games where it felt like if they lost, like the San Jose game, if they lost, they'd be on the outside looking in. They've put themselves in a position now to go into this game and play freely, play their own game. It is more of a must win for the fan base than it is for the team on the ice.
Yeah, I would say more of the outside implications make it a must win rather than the points and the actual on ice importance of it, Ross. But I mean, look, the Ottawa Senators and their fan base, we got to go to the closet, get the brooms out, and sweep the Maple Leafs into a dustbin and put them in a bag for the garbage disposal to pick up later. We do not want the Montreal Canadiens to be able to sweep the season series. And like I said, there's still another game in Ottawa later, but it would be nice just to cut that narrative off right now, especially at the Bell Center.
Well, yeah, and it would give Montreal a season series win because this would be the third of 4 games. Montreal is 2-0 against Ottawa this year, and Ottawa had a 9-game winning streak over Montreal beforehand. So you don't want the pendulum to swing the entirety on the other side. Let's get a good battle tonight. I think Linus Ullmark will be better. Ullmark will start in goal for Ottawa. This year, he has had 2 of his worst games against the Montreal Canadiens. You'll remember 5 goals on 15 shots in the last appearance. I know Ottawa was missing a lot of guys up front, but still, you'd like to see him play better in that game from the Four Nations. He's got a .780 save percentage and a 6.14 goals against average in the 2 games this year against Montreal, a far cry south from his season save percentage of .911 and his season save percentage of 2.66. Ullmark is now 18-11-3 on the season. He's played 34 games. It's climbing now. This will be his 6th straight start against an original 6 team. He has the opportunity to do something that nobody since Al Smith, who remembers Al Smith back in 1971, accomplished the same feat, beating all 6 original 6 teams in quick succession, you after you after you, and so on and so forth. Linus Ullmark, no spoilers, is going to be a very key piece to the Senators winning tonight. But what is it about this rivalry to you that makes it so special? Like, we know that there's rivalries with Montreal and Toronto and Detroit. What makes the Sens-Habs rivalry unique to you?
Well, obviously the geographical aspect of it. These two teams are the closest 2 teams to each other in the league. Just a quick drive, flight, train ride, whatever. It doesn't take long to get from Ottawa to Montreal. And I think too, Ross, the interesting thing as well is now that Michael Landauer and the Sens ownership and the Sens as an organization are really embracing the Ottawa-Gatineau region, they make a very big point to emphasize Gatineau in the area as well. We're trying to bring in some of the Francophone community for those people that live in Quebec that are raised right and hate the Habs. There's plenty of room on the Sens bandwagon. Come on over. And you don't really have that with other teams, right? Like, I don't know a single Francophone Canadian that is a Leafs fan. Maybe some of them were Nordique fans and followed the team to Colorado, but I feel like even that's rare. There's certainly not.
Well, it helped too how then they just traded for Patrick Waugh right away. So you had the Francophone connection in goal, and then they won the cup right away. So yeah, I'm sure there's some, and maybe, man, this might be sacrilege to say, but the Nordiques fans who hated the Habs might have gone to Boston.
See, I was about to say that, but I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing. People can let us know, but I feel like Francophones and Boston, that's never really been a mix there. So I think that's the first thing that jumps out at me, Ross, is the kind of French connection between these two teams.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you mentioned Michael Andlauer. That obviously spices things up.
Yes.
Even minority owner Kyle Bratz used to be a Habs fan, but he's shedded that, and you'll see him at every single Ottawa Senators game as well. So there's certainly that behind the scenes look, but on the ice, I just look at that playoff series in 2013 that really sparked this. The Eric Greiba hit on Lars Eller, the comments in the media from Michel Terrier and Paul McLean, the line brawl in Game 3, the absolute beatdown that Ottawa put on them in that series. And then 2 years later, it was MVP Carey Price that put an end to the Hamburglar run in 2015. So the fact that both of those teams have one series win against the other in the playoffs, I think that's where it went from, geographical rival to we absolutely hate these guys. Now, since then, obviously the characters have changed in the cast, but you've got new blood, the Brady Tkachuk implications, the Tim Stützle and Brendan Gallagher, those two guys still going at it. You have these storylines within it. Arbor Jackeye putting himself in, like, I know he inserted himself. He said yesterday, I couldn't believe this. I was watching all the Habs interviews, and Jackeye said, I really made my name for myself against that organization. I did some big things. I looked it up, and he got his first point against Ottawa in the last game. Before that, I think it was 0 points, -4 in 5 games. He's talking about the rookie tournament.
Yeah, and Habs, I love Habs fans being like, Jackeye owns Tkachuk, and then they'll tweet a picture of Jackeye fighting a guy in the rookie tournament who we don't even know of and is no longer and never really was part of the organization. Like, Zachary
Massicott, if I'm not mistaken, but an undrafted invite to a rookie tournament, not main camp.
Sick, buddy.
Rookie tournament. Sick. Yeah, his 2 biggest moments against Ottawa have come outside of the regular season. The other one was where he tried to take Tim Stützle's head off 4 seconds after he got rid of the puck. So, hey,
Ross,
all's good in rivalry, though. All's good in rivalry.
And that's the thing. Like, I hate, my biggest pet peeve is sports fans, and unfortunately, a lot of these examples are Habs fans, where they don't get the fact that you're supposed to have hatred in rivalry. You're supposed to take swings at each other, and then they do the rent-free, we own you guys, blah, blah. Like, that's just such a low IQ thing to toss out, in my opinion, because
the worst.
We're sports fans. We like, if you don't hate other teams, what's the point? Like that's what makes it so fun. That's what makes it so interesting. And I hate the Habs. I hate Habs fans. I hope they hate the Sens, and I hope they dislike me. If you're hate watching this, I love that. We hate watch shows as well. Yeah, bonjour. But another wrinkle to throw in too, Ross, that is more kind of connected to this era. How about the Habs taking Jesper Kotkaniemi 1 pick ahead of Brady Tkachuk? Oh my God. If that moment in time is flipped, or even the Habs take Brady and the Sens take whoever, they wouldn't take Kotkaniemi because what a bad pick that early. Imagine how different the landscape looks right now, right? Yeah. Like that is such a huge moment in time for both of these organizations. And the fact that they both kind of started their rebuilds at the same time and have been kind of pitted up against each other, trying to get out of those rebuilds. And now we're at a point where both teams, the light is at the end of the tunnel. Each fan base is seeing the fruits of their labor and the hard years of losing and tanking and drafting and trading away favored players from their teams now paying off. So it's all kind of come to a boiling point here, and that's what makes this rivalry so exciting now.
And I think a lot of Habs fans will say, no, our rebuilds didn't start at the same time. Ours started after we made the Stanley Cup final. Well, first of all, let me remind you that you made the Stanley Cup final in a 56 game season where you played 6 different teams. And you got to play the Toronto Maple Leafs, known chokers, in the first round, and you erased a 3-1 series lead. You played a divisional team in the Stanley Cup final.
Exactly. The Eastern Conference final was you versus Vegas.
Huh? But the Habs did not make the playoffs in 2020, did not make the playoffs in 2019, and did not make the playoffs in 2018. If you're looking at 82 games,
seasons, 2020 would have been that year.
No, that was the next year. It was the COVID shortened year. Remember, all the teams got invited.
Isn't it?
No, that was the pods. 2020 was the pods.
Oh, okay.
Habs didn't get invited to that, did they? I thought they had. Was that it, or was it?
That's that year. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. 2021.
They wouldn't have done that non-COVID.
No, because it was the full COVID year.
Oh,
there were hubs. Montreal beat Pittsburgh in the qualifying round. So is that even the playoffs? And then they lost in the 1-8 matchup to Philadelphia in the first round.
That seems like forever ago, so my memory is a little foggy on that.
So they made it to the qualifying round in expanded playoffs in 2020. But no, it was the All-Canadian division. The Habs got out of that one and made it to the Stanley Cup final and lost. But they didn't make the playoffs the 2 years before. In an 82-game season, the Sens and Habs made the playoffs the same last year, 2016, 2017. And Habs fans, we were waiting for you in the second round, but you couldn't get past the New York Rangers, so we took care of them for you as well. Tonight, though, again, it's a great matchup between two teams that you have to tip your hat, have had amazing stretches right now. They're the 2 hottest teams in the Eastern Conference. We'll break down the lineups, roster notes, players to watch tonight, and keys to a Senators victory. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by new sponsor. What's the new sponsor alert noise this time, Ross? Let's hear it.
Holy smokes.
All right, here we go. New sponsor, Upwork. Guys, scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and so much more. Experts are ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. And instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's WORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like seeing live NHL action, like tonight in Montreal between the Sens and the Habs. And if you're looking to get to the game, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. I always look at the Game Time app on game days because it highlights super deals, which gives you the best bang for your buck. With seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Pilsy, from La Belle Provence, it is the Ottawa Senators taking on the Montreal Canadiens tonight, a 7 o'clock puck drop. We will have your postcast right after the game. Come one, come all. The road to 10K continues on our YouTube channel where we stream after every single game. But if you missed it, don't worry. All of our podcasts are available on your favorite audio podcast platform right after we finish the show. Pilsy, I'm fired up about this game. Should we get to some stats or should we get to the Sens lineup first?
Let's take a look at the lines, and that'll lead into some stats.
Wonderful. Just love that. The Senators just had their optional morning skate. We heard from head coach Travis Green, and the main note is the lineup remains the same, which means no Nick Jensen tonight. Senators' most underrated defender throughout the season this year will miss a second consecutive game. Jensen has been out of the lineup not much this season, I believe just last game. And the thing with Jensen is he's been playing through something over the course of the last 2-3 months. So after this game, the Senators don't play again until Thursday, so that'll give him almost a full week off between games. We'll see how that helps. What Travis Green slyly called a lower body injury. He's just hurt. He's hurting somewhere, and hopefully he can get back on track. Here's how the Senators will line up tonight. Tim Stützle centering Brady Tkachuk and Claude Giroux. You've got Dylan Cousins between David Perron and Drake Batherson. Shane Pinto centering Ridley Gregg and Michael Amadio. And then Adam Gaudette with Matthew Highmore and Fabian Zetterlund. On the back end, Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot with Travis Hamonic, and Tyler Klevin with Nicholas Matin-Palo. Linus Ullmark starts in goal. Pilsy, your locked-on player to watch.
My locked-on player to watch tonight is going to be number 12, Shane Pinto. We've talked a lot about how the third line has been getting the tough assignments up against other teams. And when we take a look at the Habs lineup next, I think it'll be pretty clear to everyone which line is the tough assignment. The Habs front load their top line big time. So I got to assume that Travis Green is going to have Ridley Gregg, Shane Pinto, and Michael Amadio up against that line. I want to see them have the success that we're used to them having up against top lines, or at least that the eye test told us they had up against top lines, Ross. Shane Pinto, he's been figuring it out lately. He did not have a point up against the Leafs, but he did have a goal and assist up against the Bruins, and he had a goal up against the Philadelphia Flyers. And we know when Shane Pinto has a point, or especially when Shane Pinto scores a goal, this team's chance of having success and winning games goes through the roof. So I want to see Shane Pinto get on the stat sheet tonight.
And in the last 3 months, Pilsy, since December 13th, that win against the Carolina Hurricanes on the road. That's 34 games for Shane Pinto, 38 games for the rest of the team. Nobody on the Ottawa Senators has more even strength points. That kind of shocked me per the LOSP stats department. Shane Pinto is number 1 with 20 even strength points. Tim Stützle is at 19. Claude Giroux and Thomas Chabot are tied for third with 16. So Shane Pinto is getting it done offensively, as well as matching up against Austin Matthews and all the other teams' top lines. And he'll need to do that tonight against Nick Suzuki, whose line has been red hot as of late. That's a great locked-on player to watch. I'm going to stick down the middle and go with Tim Stützle. When you look at the Ottawa Senators and the rivalry against Montreal, Tim Stützle is always at the center of it. He scored in both games against the Habs this year. Did they matter? No, not at the end of the game, but he's still showing that he can produce against Montreal. He's got great numbers on the season. He's got at least a point in 16 of the last 17 games. Tim Stützle is red hot right now, and I think that this rivalry type game is going to bring out the best in him. So I'll be watching for Tim Stützle tonight to have an electric game. Don't even worry about hitting him early. You can try if you want. I don't think that's going to knock Tim Stützle off his game. He's the type of player that every team needs to have a successful road game. You need that offensive catalyst. And in his career against Montreal, Tim Stützle has 20 points in 21 games, 47 shots on goal, and he's averaging just over 17 and a half minutes. That's one of a two-part series, Pilsy, because we know that Habs fans, they love chirping two guys, Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk. Why don't you let the people know what Brady Tkachuk has done in his career against the Montreal Canadiens?
Yeah, Brady Tkachuk also has had success against the Montreal Canadiens. In 29 games, he's got 27 points, 13 goals, 14 assists, 100 shots on goal. So the fact that Habs fans seem to have this narrative that Tkachuk and Timmy aren't effective or somehow the Habs own them is kind of crazy to me, especially Ross, now that we're going to see them on the same line. So anytime that the Habs try to take liberties at Tim Stützle, well, Brady Tkachuk is going to be there, which is what Ottawa Senators fans want to see. And these two, they've grown up playing a lot of time on the same team beside each other up against the Montreal Canadiens. So both of them get up for these rivalry games.
They certainly do. Cannot wait to see the next edition of the Sens and Habs rivalry. We got the Habs lineup on the other side, players to watch and keys to victory for 2 points. Enormous 2 points on the line. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at the GLEBE Central Pub. We love the GCP. It's our bar whenever we come to the nation's capital in the heart of the Glebe at 779 Bank Street. I love the fact that they got the Sens Shuttle going again. The Sens Shuttle will pick you up at the pub, take you to the game, enjoy the game, and then it brings you right back to the pub to keep the good times going. Only $17 round trip. You can't beat that kind of deal. They love Sens fans. They got live music on Saturdays. They've got great food, great drinks, and I love the service there. The staff, the servers, the bartenders, Blair, the owner, all absolute beauties. And that's our pub. Whenever we come to Ottawa, you know you're going to find us there, usually pretty early on game days too, as we like to get it going at the GCP. So visit them at 779 Bank Street, the GCP, where the vibes are free.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, Pilsy. So the Ottawa Senators come into tonight's game against the Montreal Canadiens. Winners of 6 in a row. They are 7-0-1 in their last 8 games. Meanwhile, the Montreal Canadiens are the hottest team in the National Hockey League since the Four Nations break. They're 7-1-2. Only one regulation loss over that span. Big part of that is their top line of Nick Suzuki with Cole Caulfield and Uri Slavkovsky. Behind them, it's Alex Newhook with Joshua Waugh and Patrick Laine. The third line features Christian Dvorak with Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher, and the fourth line of Jake Evans, Emil Heineman, and Joel Armia. On the back end, it's Mike Matheson with Alexandre Carrier. It's Jaden Struble with Lane Hudson, and Arbor Jackeye is with David Savard. Samuel Montembeau starts in goal. He's 2-0 against the Senators this season. Jakub Dobesh is the backup. Pilsy, your lookout player to watch.
Well, Ross, it's tough for me to find a lookout player to watch on the Habs because each player I look at, I'm like, oh man, this guy pisses me off. I despise this guy. I don't like this guy. But I did find one player that I've found some respect for. So my lookout player is going to be number 20, Juraj Slafkovsky. And he's starting to find his game, first overall pick in 2022. He's been hot lately. In the last game up against Florida, he had an assist. Then in a loss to the Kraken, he had 2 goals. And then up against the Vancouver Canucks, he had a goal and 2 assists. So he's looking at 6 points in his last 3 games. But Ross, it's the mentality that he has and the intelligence and the maturity that this kid has, because he had a quote earlier on this season saying, quote, "You have to play like Brady Tkachuk if you want to have success in this league." That's the kind of player I want to become. I mean, finally, someone in a Habs jersey that has something smart to say and is aware of the type of hockey you need to play to have success. So for that, I will be looking out for number 20, Slafkovsky. Hopefully, he can get some time with his idol. Maybe Brady can take a pick and sign a stick for the kid after the game.
Yeah, get him a stick, eh?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Slafkovsky had a great last game against Ottawa. Got in that fight with Ridley Gregg. Now, did he look like an experienced fighter? No, but it was a good tilt. It was a huge hit that Ridley Gregg put on, and credit to him, he bounced up and wanted to go. So Ridley Gregg gave up about 60 pounds in that fight and gave him a good go. So Slafkovsky also scored in that game. He leads the Habs in even strength points with 10 in his last 10 games. The former first overall pick of the 2022 draft is certainly a player to look out for. I'm going to go with the captain, Nick Suzuki, who is red hot. You talk about Slafkovsky. I mean, this whole line is Caulfield's putting the puck in the back of the net. No longer can we say he's the best 40 goal scorer to not score 30 goals. He's hit and passed that milestone. Heck, he might even get to 40 this year. But Nick Suzuki's a huge reason why, facilitating down the middle. Since the Four Nations, Nick Suzuki is tied for second in the National Hockey League in points, only 1 less than Leon Draisaitl, and Draisaitl's played 2 more games. Now, Roope Hintz has played 1 less game than Suzuki, and they're tied with 17 points. But you catch my drift. Nick Suzuki is offensively carrying this team. Our good friends over with Sportlogique had a stat to back that up. At 5-on-5 since the trade deadline, so a little more recently than the Four Nations, Suzuki's line is 6-0 up on the ice at 5-on-5 with a 62% of the expected goal share, and they are out shooting their opponents 42-22 over that span. Now, Mike Kelly of Sportlogique, friend of the show, is comparing that to the Dylan Cousins line, which ironically is not the Sens' top line. It's their second line, but both of those lines have been red hot, and you got to be aware when Nick Suzuki's on the ice. Obviously, Lane Hudson's an elite offenseman from the back end. He's already got 52 points on the season, but you have to be able to pressure these guys. Listening to Martin St. Louis talk today, he says the biggest area of growth for the Habs has been between the 2 dots. So the entries and the exits into their own zone and into the offensive zone, he thinks that that's the biggest recipe for success. So if you're the Senators, stop the rush at the blue line. Don't let the Habs get in, get set up, and work the cycle. Make sure that they're getting contested each and every time. I'm not worried about Ottawa's zone entries. They're showing that they're an elite forechecking team. They'll chip, chase, cause havoc. I'm not worried about that, but it's how Ottawa's defending the rush without Nick Jensen that's going to be a huge key to victory for me for the Ottawa Senators tonight.
Yep, that's a good one. For me, it's shut down that top line. You read all those stats out, Ross. Look, loading your top line is a bit of a high risk, high reward type move, right? And it's paying off big time for the Habs. So like, I'm not about to bash them for that decision, but what it's done is the rest of that lineup is pretty weak in my opinion. Like I think each of the Sens other lines match up very well up against the Habs of the lines, especially Ross with like we talked about. Likely that third line is going to get assigned to shutting down that top line. So we're going to see Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, Claude Giroux get a much weaker line matchup. We're going to see the Cousins, Perron, Batherson line get a much weaker matchup. Now, obviously, the Habs at home, they'll get to choose how the lines match up. But I think we're going to get to see an advantageous line matchup either way for any lines other than the Habs top line.
Well, if you want some banter by the old Culligan machine today, maybe you could let the Habs fan in your life know that the Senators' fourth line tonight of Gaudette, Zetterlund, and Matthew Highmore have more goals this season than the Habs' second line of Newhook, Patrick Laine, and Joshua Waugh.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Laine's got 16 goals, matching Adam Gaudette. You've got 13 goals for Alex Newhook, which is 4 less than Fabian Zetterlund. And then Joshua Waugh has no goals this year in 7 games, which is 1 less than Matthew Highmore.
And 13 of Laine's 16 are on the power play.
So be aware where Patrick Laine is if you take a penalty tonight.
Yes. Yeah.
He has 3, 5, or even strength goals.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow. All right. Excited for tonight. It's going to be a great game. Pillsy, what's your key to victory?
Well, that was it. Shut down that top line.
Shut down top line. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. And you already got through our players to watch. Let's hit on the standings then to wrap up today's show. I mean, I saw it was so sad to see. It was great. I appreciate it. I think it was Brady to the net who pulled it up for us. But at this time last year, we were doing spins at the end of each show on Tankathon. So times, they have a change. Senators with 16 games left in the season. They've got 6 games left against teams in their wild card chase. One of those will be played tonight. Senators have the Habs tonight. They got the Wings next week. The Habs again later on this year. And we know the 3 games in 11 days against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So this is a critical game tonight for Ottawa, as they're not only getting towards the end of the season, but they're getting towards the end of this wild stretch of games where they're taking on teams right around them in the standings. Turns out, Pillsy, scoreboard watching up is a lot less fun. Tampa and Toronto both win last night.
Yeah, it makes things a little more difficult. But Ross, we're in a blessed position to decide how we want to spin our narrative, whether we want the out-of-town scoreboard to be good, scoreboard watching down, or the out-of-town scoreboard to be not so great if we're scoreboard watching up. So it's a good spot to be in.
It's an interesting spot to be in. We can't lose. And hopefully don't lose tonight. As you can see, the Senators with 77 points, the Rangers with 72, the Habs with 71, then the Wings and Blue Jackets at 70. And there's only one other game of substance tonight for the Ottawa Senators on the out-of-town scoreboard. And Habs fans, listen up to this one as well. We're going to be cheering for the Washington Capitals to beat the Detroit Red Wings. Washington at home to Detroit. The only other Eastern I missed one. The Rangers are at home to the Calgary Flames. The Flames did us absolutely no favors yesterday. So can the Flames get us a win tonight against the Rangers on the road? Second half of back-to-back, that one's tough. So the out-of-town scoreboard we're looking for tonight on the cheering guide: Ottawa Senators over the Montreal Canadiens, the Calgary Flames over the New York Rangers, and then a little later on, the Washington Capitals over the Detroit Red Wings.
I don't know, Ross. Part of the Habs hater in me is kind of leaning towards cheering on Detroit and making it harder for the Habs. Like if Detroit got in instead of the Habs, I hate the Red Wings as well, but not as much as I hate the Habs. Like it would make me smile more to see the Red Wings make it hard on the Habs than to see the Caps push the Red Wings down more. So I'm kind of conflicted on that one, not gonna lie.
But wait, why wouldn't you just cheer for the Rangers then?
Sure. I mean, yeah, sure.
The only problem with that, the Rangers have played 2 extra games, and I don't really want to get back into I like being in the first wild card. I think that's a fun spot. right now.
So do I, but I've made it clear, and we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves, but
Nope.
I do think the Sens and Caps would be a favorable matchup for the Ottawa Senators. Maybe that's crazy, but that's the side I've been leaning on here.
All right. Well, let's see how tonight goes. Going to be an exciting game, and we'll have the postcast for you right afterwards. You can find us on Twitter at Sens Central, lockedon.senators on Instagram. We are only 40 subscribers away from 10,000 on our YouTube page. So let's keep the good vibes going with this Ottawa Senators team. Please subscribe, and you can catch us anywhere you get audio podcasts. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
I just want this win so badly, Ross, especially because you and I went to Montreal earlier this season. That was not a good game for us, especially not a good game for me. Anytime I've had a Sens versus Habs experience in Montreal, it has gone poorly for me. So I'm doing my part. I abstained from going to Montreal to this game. Hopefully that gives the Sens a bit of luck here. I just want this one badly because we're riding the high of sweeping the Leafs, another division rivalry. So I would like to cut off any opportunity for the Habs to have that same smugness against us.
And get this, there's 9 games in the NHL tonight. This is the number one matchup. This is the marquee matchup.
Definitely.
This is the game that everybody around the league is going to be checking in on. Sens and Habs, the 2 hottest teams in the Eastern Conference since the Four Nations break. Cannot wait for this one. 7 o'clock puck drop. Well, 7 o'clock start. It's in Montreal, so it'll probably start around 7:30, but it's going to be a great game when it does. Cannot wait to discuss it in the postcast afterwards. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.